Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, and today we're going to talk about UFC Vegas 96, Jared Cannonier versus Caio Borralho, and my friends. It's going down this Saturday night live at the Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. You got the top prospect, Caio Borralho, moving up all the way to the top 5 to take on Jared Cannonier. This is a huge step up in competition, but Caio Borralho, he's been doing nothing but winning. And now it's time to see, is he truly a top 5 guy right now or not? So without further ado,
let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
Main event of the evening in the middleweight division. We got the killer gorilla, Jared Cannonier. He's 17-7, taking on the natural Caio Borralho, who's 16-1. And currently they got it. Caio Borralho minus 240. The comeback on Jared Cannonier is plus 205. So there's a lot to like about this kid, Caio Borralho. Firstly, when you talk about his jiu-jitsu background, it's not enough to just say he's a black belt. I mean, this guy's a black belt under Damian Maia. One does not simply receive their black belt under Damian Maia. So this guy takes your back. This guy gets on top of you. You better know what the hell you're doing if you want to escape. And on the feet, he's got kind of like a low volume karate style, kind of patient on the outside. We'll look to snipe from time to time, but we haven't really seen his striking on display versus any actual strikers. The times he lets his hands truly go are against dudes that, like Paul Craig, who I respect a lot, but we know Paul Craig, what he's known for mainly is that nasty triangle choke, and he pulls guard in a lot of fights, but we know Paul Craig isn't really known for his stand-up and stuff like that. And the guys that Caio Borralho has the most success against standing are guys that aren't known for that element of the game. And when I talk about low volume, why don't y'all take a guess what the most amount of significant strikes that Caio Borralho's ever landed in a UFC fight? I'll tell y'all right now. It was his fight against Abus Magomedov, where Caio landed a grand total of 51 significant strikes. Now, when you compare that to Jared Cannonier, you can't. I mean, Jared Cannonier has been up here for middleweight. He's been putting up Max Holloway numbers. Look at his fight with Marvin Vettori one fight ago. This guy attempted 428 total strikes, and he landed 257 of them. I mean, you have to combine a bunch of Caio's fights to get those kind of numbers. And even that last fight against Imavov, where Jared lost, he still landed more strikes in that fight that was a loss than Caio has in any fight. Even that fight against Izzy, where everyone just views it as hey, Jared Cannonier and Izzy were just staring at each other. It was a terrible fight. Dude, Jared Cannonier landed more significant strikes in that Izzy fight where they stared at each other than Caio Borralho has in any of his UFC fights. So Caio, yes, he's a bit of a sniper and he takes his time, he makes his reads, and obviously you don't want to get hit by him. We talked about it last week. I don't think they're 4-ounce gloves anymore now. I think they're 3-ounce gloves. And another thing, you look at the line, it's minus 240. Well, why is it minus 240? I mean, I think the reason why is, let's look at the age. Caio is 11 years younger than Jared Cannonier, and Jared's coming off a stoppage loss. Now, granted, it was a very early stoppage. I mean, it was a terrible stoppage. If you look at the scorecards, Cannonier was up 2-1 on 2 of the judges' scorecards going into that 4th round. Now, I agree that Imavov was taking over the fight, but Imavov's striking caliber compared to Caio, you just cannot compare them. Imavov's a real striker, and also Imavov has put up real numbers before. Imavov's gone the distance with Sean Strickland and put up some serious numbers. Cannonier's gone the distance with Strickland and won. It's what I'm trying to say here is Borralho is 100% earned this opportunity. He's beat every single person they put in front of him. But when you're going from unranked competition to a top 5 guy on planet Earth, I'm not saying he's not going to be a top 5 guy one day, but I'm just not convinced he's a top 5 guy right now. What has he proven? What has he shown you to prove he's ready for the top 5 right now? I mean, let's look through this resume, because I actually bet against Caio once when he fought Mahmoud Muradov. And firstly, look at the numbers in that fight. Caio landed a grand total of 19 significant strikes. Those numbers are so bad. And Mahmoud actually had a lot of success in that fight. I thought that Mahmoud's fight IQ was kind of questionable, because Mahmoud, known for his boxing, was out there taking down Caio Borralho. But Caio had this nasty guillotine that he kept threatening on Mahmoud Muradov, and it made Mahmoud actually bail and go to his back. Then Caio would get on top and he won the fight like that. But there were some situations in that fight that were like, dude, I don't know. And yes, I know everyone's talking about the fighting nerds. Look, the fighting nerds have looked great lately, but to just blindly say, oh, he trains with the fighting nerds, therefore he's going to win. I mean, that's like a couple years ago. Fortis MMA was the hot gym, then City Kickboxing, then ATT, then now it's the fighting nerds. It's like all these gyms are great, but like whenever a gym goes on a hot streak, everyone just kisses their ass and acts like, wow, they know the new way of fighting that's never been done before. It's like, dude, like stop. Like, it's just look at who Caio's been fighting. That's why he's been getting these results. Like Paul Craig, Abus Magomedov, Michal Oleksiejczuk. Like, so I'd say the best guys that Caio's beat are Armen Petrosian, Mahmoud Muradov, and like Michal Oleksiejczuk, but like none of these guys are ranked fighters. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, this is a massive step up in competition. But again, why is he minus 240 here? Because Jared Cannonier is 40 and Jared Cannonier is coming off a stoppage loss. That's it. That's the only reason. I mean, can you tell me another reason why he's minus 240 here? Because like, think about it. How's Jared Cannonier's grappling? Well, when Jared Cannonier was super green, he fought Glover Teixeira up at 205, by the way. For those that don't know, Jared Cannonier's fought at heavyweight, at 205, and at middleweight. When he fought Glover Teixeira, back when Jared was green, he was under Glover for a lot of time in that fight, and he didn't get submitted. When Jared fought Jack Cannonier in Jack Cannonier's hometown, Jack took his back, and Jared had some very, very nice defense and was able to get back up to the feet and then rough him up. And I mean, as long as there hasn't been a massive decline in Jared Cannonier, which I haven't seen, like the Imavov fight does not tell me he's on a big decline. The Imavov fight just tells me that Imavov's an absolute stud, that Imavov is a guy moving up. And I agree that Caio's moving up too, but I just haven't seen it at a high level yet. And again, I'm not saying it can't happen. Look, Oddsmakers have him minus 240. He's catching Jared Cannonier at a good time. Caio does have a lot of fight IQ. So I'm not writing off the possibility, obviously, but I'm just not convinced he's a top 5 guy right now. Look, I'm not that confident. When I'm super confident, you'll know. Like for the Bilal fight, I sat here for 20 straight minutes telling you why Bilal would win. For the Dricus fight, I sat here for like 17 minutes making my pitch for Dricus. Here, I'm not as confident because, again, Jared's getting up there in age, and at some point, the wheels are going to fall out. But I'm just not sold on Caio being a top 5 guy right now. So I think this is a dogger pass situation. I think it's a massive step up for Caio. I think that Jared is going to neutralize the grappling and bust him up standing. And I think the volume difference is going to be huge. So unless Jared Cannonier has just declined overnight, like dramatically, I think he's a super tough out for Caio Borralho. And for that reason, I'm going to pick him to come out here and get this upset. Co-main event of the evening in the strawweight division. We got Angela Hill. She's 17-3, taking on Tabatha Ricci, who's 10-2. Currently, they got it to pick them. Just depends where you look. Minus 110 Hill, minus 110 Ricci. Fans that have to battle, I got to keep it 100 with y'all, like always. I usually pick against Angela Hill. Now, a lot of times I'm right, but lately I've been wrong because, like, she's like 40 years old, but she's been coming out here like having you got to be careful when you say career resurgence. Last week when I said Dan Hooker was on a career resurgence, someone, gave me a little heat in the comments, and then Hooker goes out there and wins that fight. But Hill has been coming out here and winning fights. And with Tabatha Ricci, I do kind of think she's a bit on the overrated side. But one thing I do like about Ricci is that, well, we know about her jiu-jitsu, but the volume's been getting a lot better too. Like that last fight she had against Tisha Torres, to compete with someone like that and go 3 straight rounds to the split decision. But then you see that loopy fight was kind of questionable. Like, I think that Angela can get the volume edge here, but I think that Tabatha has a big edge on the mat. And also, but then again, a fight like this is tough to even break down because it's like, who's judging this fight? Is Adelaide Bird judging it? Is Chris Lee judging it? Is, like, we've seen so many crazy scorecards, guys, like 30-27 Tai Tuivasa the other night. And I know there were some other ones that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, that it's like, why even break down the X's and O's of this minus 110 a piece matchup when you know that, like, even if I give you A1 analysis. The judges might just come out here and ruin it for you. So yeah, in this case, I'd say that Tabatha Ricci is easier on the eyes, so the judges will probably be staring at her, and I guess that she'll win the split decision. So, but I could also see her get a sub. You know, you remember when what's the redhead girl's name? Not Jillian, the other one, Randa Marcos. You remember when Randa Marcos messed up Angela Hill? I remember. I'm gonna go Tabatha here, but it could be a split, it could be a sub. It could be a robbery. Like with these judges, you just never know, my man. So I'll go Tabatha, but who knows? All right. So featured bout, we got the Ultimate Fighter finale at middleweight between Ryan Loder, who's 6-1, taking on Robert Valentin, who's 10-3. Currently, they got it. Robert Valentin -170. The comeback on Ryan Loder is +145. So I didn't watch a single episode of the Ultimate Fighter this year. No disrespect to any of the fighters on there or anything like that. It's been a busy year. I just haven't had a second to watch any of the fights, but these two I'm actually a little bit familiar with. Ryan Loder, especially because he beat a really good NFC prospect named Lawan Davis, who was undefeated at the time, has all the physical attributes from ever since he was an amateur to like a pro. Lawan Davis was a guy where we're like, yeah, this guy clearly stands out. This guy's clearly going to be something. And this dude, Ryan Loder, who, by the way, is a former D1 wrestler, is one of the wrestling coaches at Team Alpha Male. He didn't just go out there and out wrestle Lawan Davis. I mean, he did out wrestle him, but he didn't just do that. He also dropped Lawan Davis. So, right off the bat, I took note, yeah, this Ryan Loder kid is no slouch at all. The one loss he took to Troy Green, another NFC veteran. Listen, man, when you're that early in your career, you're going to take some L's along the way. And with this dude, Robert Valentin, from what I can tell, he's a bit of a big, long, scary striker. He's from over there in Switzerland. And I saw the highlight of his elbow knockout he had on the Ultimate Fighter. That was just disgusting. But when you see the guy he was fighting, it was like a clear jobber. It was like, what's this guy doing on the Ultimate Fighter? And you've seen in the past in some of Robert Valentin's fights that he is susceptible to the takedowns. I mean, in Switzerland, they're not exactly known for their wrestling game. They're known for other things. Swiss cheese, Swiss Army knives, but not wrestling. And I think that I think that Ryan Loder is going to come out here and expose that. Obviously, look, there was a fight recently, and I can't remember the fight, where it was wrestler versus striker, right? And the wrestler refused to grapple. Oh yeah. Carl Williams, another NFC vet. This breakdown has been filled with NFC vets. Carl Williams, you're clearly a better striker you're clearly a better wrestler than this Denise guy, and he doesn't shoot a takedown until round 3. You're like, oh my God. And then when he does shoot a takedown, he gets it so easily. Like Ryan Loder, dude, you have a plaque on your wall that says you can take this man down. Are you gonna do it or not? So yeah, at this point, it's like, it seems pretty obvious that Ryan Loder can come out here and use that D1 pedigree, but these guys don't always fight how you want them to. Sometimes the D1 wrestlers decide to go out there and bang. And if he bangs, there's a chance he hits the deck. But I'm going to go Ryan Loder here. All you got to do is win to get that Ultimate Fighter trophy and contract, man. So just win. Be excited in your next fight. Secure the contract first. I'll go Ryan Loder here. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we also got another Ultimate Fighter finale between Kaan Ofli. He's 11-2, taking on Mairon Santos, who's 13-1. Currently, they got it. Mairon Santos -180. The comeback on Kaan Ofli is +155. I'm not as familiar with these two. And again, I didn't watch a single episode of The Ultimate Fighter, but what I can tell from Kaan Ofli is that he's probably going to be the stronger grappler in this spot. And with Mairon Santos, big leg kicks, explosive striker, but big issues on the mat. Dan Arguedo was able to grind this man out. So yeah, that's another one where I'll probably go with the dog. But this one, I'm not as familiar with these two. So take what I'm saying here with a grain of salt, but I'll go with the dog Ofli to hopefully get some grappling success. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between the hot prospect, the undefeated Ecuadorian stud, Michael Morales. He's 16-0, taking on the ultimate vet, Neil Magny, who's 29-11. Currently, they got it. Michael Morales -850. The comeback on Neil Magny is +600. So they're giving Michael Morales the Neil Magny test. And what's interesting about that is that a lot of these guys, you know, you think, okay, you've seen the blueprint on how to beat Neil Magny. You chop down his skinny ass legs, eventually go upstairs. You can mix in takedowns, do the whole bit. But where you don't want to fight him is in the clinch, because for whatever reason, people seem to be like mesmerized by the range of Neil Magny, who at one point had the longest reach in welterweight history. And guys would get into these clinch battles and fatigue themselves and fight very uncharacteristically. Guys like Robbie Lawler, guys like the Leech, Li Jing Liang, and then some of these newer prospects, even like Mike Malott, like he was whooping Neil's ass and gassed from whooping on Neil. But the thing about Morales is that Morales won't mind fighting Neil in the clinch. And that's what makes it intriguing for me. It might not be the most exciting fight to watch, because I do think there's going to be a lot of clinching. But the thing about it is Morales, he can actually match that strength, and he has an answer for that style. Like, for example, you watch Morales' Contender Series fight where he fought that Veritechnikov guy, the one that just fought Barlow, that went to a split decision with Barlow. Veritechnikov is a super tough guy. And in that third round, Morales was getting the better of the clinch. You look at Morales' other fight that he went to the third round in, well, who was it against? Against Jake Matthews. In that third round, Morales is dictating what's going on in the clinch. And also his hands have gone a hell of a lot better. So, like, I felt in that Max Griffin fight that this kid Morales is starting to develop that jab. We already know about his wrestling background. And I think he's catching Neil at a great time. I mean, look, he's a huge favorite for a reason. But the thing is, Neil is known for a lot of upsets, and he's known for setting back prospects. But I don't think this is a prospect he's going to set back. Reason being is that, like I said, all these guys that fight Neil, not all, but a lot of these guys that fight Neil, they fight uncharacteristically, rushing him into the clinch. The thing is, Morales thrives in the clinch. So I think Morales is going to actually beat Magny at his own game and possibly get a finish along the way. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Edmen Shahbazyan, he's 13-4, taking on Gerald Meerschaert, who's 36-17. Currently, they got it Edmen Shahbazyan minus 300. The comeback on Gerald Meerschaert's plus 250. Yeah, it's another one where it's like, I think that I haven't really listened to too many breakdowns, but I assume all breakdowns are saying the same thing this week, that it's most likely Edmen Shahbazyan first round KO or a Gerald Meerschaert finish after that. I mean, Edmen Shahbazyan has a lot of skills, man. Like, he's super talented, he's athletic, he hits hard, and he's a good early finisher. But he's a good hammer and not a good nail. He's the kind of guy that can give it but can't take it. And you've seen this over and over and over again. And let's not even talk about some of the studs he lost to. What about that Darren Stewart fight? Like, every single time that Edmen Shahbazyan has been past round one, shit has gotten sketchy. In that Darren Stewart fight, when he's hanging off for dear life in the third round, that was the first sign that Edmen Shahbazyan is not a future champion like people said he was. He's not the toughest guy. He's a front runner. He's a great front runner, and he can absolutely come out here and starch Meerschaert early. Meerschaert's been starched early more than once against Hamzat, against guys like Ian Heinisch, against other people too. But excuse the voice crack. But there's also been huge upsets by Meerschaert. Not only does Meerschaert have the most submissions in middleweight history, we're talking about more than Damian Maia, we're talking about more than Anderson Silva, but Meerschaert is known for setting back guys as a massive underdog, like he did to Mahmoud Murdoch, like he did to Bruno Silva, like he's done many times throughout his career. So when you're talking about a guy like Gerald Meerschaert, I mean, you better get him out in that first round. That's what Edmen has to do, or else Gerald's going to take over. And we know that Edmen does not like it when you stand up to him. So either a first round knockout for Edmen, or I can see like a second or third round, either submission or like a ground and pound TKO for Meerschaert. So yeah, the reason that, you know, when you're not sure, it's easy to take the dog, but like, what makes it tough for me is I know how this could go. I know he could just get starched in the first minute, and then you just look like an idiot if you're picking Meerschaert. But I also know that if you're picking Meerschaert, you're like, hey man, like, you look at your watch, you start the timer, like, hey, get me past the 5-minute mark. Okay, we just started round two. Let's circle a little bit. Let's mitate, get our teeps, get our carrot tops, and let's eventually start mixing in level changes, start getting those entries going, and make this guy start to suck wind a bit, man. Edmen Shahbazyan is not known for his heart or his toughness. He's just known for his early finishing ability. So, yeah, I think Edmen is first round or bust. He can absolutely get that first round finish. But if he doesn't, I think Meerschaert's going to come out here and extend either his record for most submissions in middleweight history or get a ground and pound TKO. So which one's it going to be? Well, I don't know. I mean, Meerschaert's been on the show before, so Eddie follows me on Twitter, so we'll go with him. No, but in all seriousness, it's tough. It's either that Edmen first round KO or Edmen quits. So we'll see which one happens. I'll go Gerald Meerschaert for the upset. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Dennis Buzukia. He's 12-4, taking on Francis Marshall, who's 7-2. Currently, they got it. Francis Marshall minus 150. The comeback on Dennis Buzukia is plus 130. So Marshall's taking it on a couple days' notice, but I'm sure he's in shape. He seems to me like the kind of guy that probably lives in the gym. I'm not that high on either guy, man. Like, I faded Marshall against Bulgarian at a very good price. I think it might have even been dog odds, which is crazy in hindsight. And then his opponent, Buzukia, is just kind of like an average striker, average MMA fighter, nothing special. Like, really? So the thing is, if both guys have a full camp, I'm going Francis Marshall here. But with Marshall taking it on 3 days' notice and Buzukia having a full camp, it's just, I do think Marshall is better than Buzukia, but like, is Marshall prepared? If one of y'all know Marshall, one of y'all are in the fire department with him, let me know in the comments. Says Marshall, like, it's one thing to be training, it's another thing to be in fight camp. They're two completely different things. And we know Buzuka's been training, but we also know Buzuka's nothing special at all. Let's see what the stats say about these guys. Because, yeah, I mean, you're talking about two super average guys, you know? So let's see what the stats have to say. And of course, UFC stats is freezing on me as I'm trying to pull that up. So, yeah. Thank you, UFC stats, for freezing as I'm trying to pull that up. I really appreciate that, guys. Okay, here we go. So, I mean, Buzukia only 2 years younger. They're the same height. Marshall has a 2-inch reach advantage. Buzukia slightly better volume. Marshall attempts more takedowns, but Buzukia has good takedown defense. And Bazooka's fought better competition. I'm gonna go Buzukia. I'm gonna go Buzukia for the upset. You know, I'm not confident at all. I think he's average, and I think Marshall's young and green. But I think that if Buzukia can keep his standing, not that he's necessarily gonna hurt Marshall, but I think he can get a little bit more volume off, keep it a little technical. But yeah, just proceed with caution, because again, when we're dealing with two kind of average green fighters, you never know which one's gonna make the big improvements fight by fight. And again, Marshall taking it on a couple days' notice. Yeah, I'm not sure. So I'll go Buzukia to edge an upset here. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Jose Medina. He's 11-3, taking on Zach Reese, who's 7-1. Currently, they got it. Zach Reese minus 600. The comeback on Jose Medina is plus 425. So Zach Reese 7-1. All 8 of those fights have ended in the first round. We know this already. He's never been past the first round. And with this dude, Jose Medina, he got signed from Contender Series off a fight where he lost like 30-27. But he was so tough that they gave him a chance. But the thing about him, so tough. If he gets past round 1, I'm not saying he's going to win. I'm just saying we don't know anything about Zach Reese past round 1. We don't. I mean, we barely know anything about Zach Reese past minute 1. So... But Medina, what we do know is he's a punching bag. He's a tough as nails punching bag. I mean, like, would it surprise you if Zach Reese beat the shit out of Jose Medina? Jose Medina survives and then finishes Zach late? Wouldn't surprise me. I just don't know enough. But what I do know is that Zach Reese is a big boy. He comes out hard in that first round, and Medina's there to be hit. So for that reason, I'm going to pick Zach Reese. But at this minus 600 price tag, like, I need assurances for someone that's minus 600. Like, I need to know what you look like at the 4-minute mark of the first round. We don't even know that with Zach Reese. And like, Medina fought a Russian. He's not fighting a Russian this time. He's fighting a first round or bust guy. So another one where it's like, yeah, I'll pick Zach Reese, but I'm not going to parlay him. Let's sit back, watch, and see if Medina can take this ass whooping up front and potentially put it on him late. I'm curious about that possibility. Now, next up, in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Viecheslav, Borschev. He's 7-4-1, taking on James Lolipop Llontop, who's 14-3. Currently, they got it. Viecheslav Borschev minus 220. The comeback on James Lolipop is plus 180. Man, this card is full of tough fights to call because Lolipop, like, he gets signed on the Contender Series, and he's this Peruvian striker, comes from a jobber regional scene. He has FFC tattooed on his neck. I mean, after this fight, I think he's gonna have to get NFC tattooed on his neck. Listen, Viecheslav Borschev, he's taken a lot of damage the last few fights. He got dropped by Chase Hooper. Oh my God. Yeah, but there was a big threat of a takedown against Chase Hooper. When you're expecting the takedown and you're expecting nothing else, you tend to drop your hands a bit. And again, you get clipped on the chin. It doesn't matter who you're fighting. And Chase has put on a little bit of man strength since he moved up to 55. This ain't that same little, the little wuss that fought Steven Peterson and all those guys at featherweight. Like, this dude, Chase Hooper, is starting to look like a grown-ass man at 55. And I think the threat of the takedown was what messed up Viecheslav Borschev there. Now, granted, Borschev has been dropped in other fights before. He can be dropped here. He's taken a shitload of damage, but when there's no threat of a takedown in a Borschev fight, which there won't be here, I say that. Watch Llontop come out here and decide to wrestle. But usually when there's no threat of a takedown and you're dealing with like a green opponent, not like a real seasoned kickboxer that, is heading towards the top 25. That's not what I'm talking about. Lolipop is some green dude from Peru that is probably lucky to be in the UFC. So yeah, Slava might kind of be on his way out, but there's no threat of a takedown here. Slava's going to get the fight he wants. Both guys will. And I think Slava's the better kickboxer. So I think Slava's going to pick this man apart and get the dub. So I go Slava Claus here. And next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Josiane Nunes. She's 10-2, taking on Jacqueline Calvacanti, who's 6-1. And currently they got it. Jacqueline Calvacanti minus 220. The comeback on Josiane Nunes is plus 185. So Jacqueline Calvacanti looks pretty decent. She looks basically like a well-rounded fighter in every area, not necessarily special anywhere, but just well-rounded and definitely seems UFC ready. The issue I have with her opponent, Josiane Nunes, you guys know exactly what the issue I have is the size. Firstly, she's listed at 5'2", guys. She's like 4'9", 4'10". But anyways, Jacqueline Calvacanti is like 5'8". So 5'8" versus 5'1". And then the volume from Calvacanti is something I like to see. In that UFC debut, she goes out there, and I know she was up against a Kaan, but she was up against a Kaan that won rounds against Josiane Nunes. And the way that Calvacanti treated that Kaan, I mean, we're talking about the strike count was 127-39. That's how you treat a Kaan. Whereas when you see Josiane Nunes with that same opponent, she was going out there losing rounds to Zara Farron. And Josiane Nunes's output is, I mean, it's not that bad, but it's not on the Calvacanti level. But the biggest issue I have with Nunes is like, you can't be 5'1", 5'2" in this weight class. Like, she's too small. She's gonna get bullied around. Like, she does swing some bungalows for a girl her size. You saw that debut. She did knock out a woman much larger than her. But the thing is, now you're up against a real fighter who has aspirations to be here, who wants to be a top 15 fighter one day, who is well-rounded. Like, I just think that Calvacanti has Nunes covered physically and technically. So for that reason, I'm going to pick her to win this fight. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Nathan Fletcher. He's 8-1, taking on Zygimantas Ramaska, who's 9-2. And currently they got it. Nathan Fletcher minus 150. The comeback on Ramaska plus 130. So again, I'm going to keep it 100 with y'all. Not as familiar with these two. I mean, what I know about Fletcher, he comes from the Cage Warrior scene, and he had an amazing fight with this prospect over there named Dominic Wooden, who I'm surprised that guy isn't in the UFC yet. I don't know if he got suckered into one of those fucking PFL deals like the Paul Hughes kid did. It's like, bro, like, what are you doing, man? I know people in the comments are going to be like, what do you mean? They're getting paid more. Like, are they really? are they really getting paid more? Do you remember when Shane Burgos went on Ariel Helwani talking about how he left the UFC? He couldn't refuse PFL's offer. Like, he was like, now I'm finally getting paid like a professional athlete. I was like, oh shit. Like, okay. So Shane Burgos is probably getting like $750K per fight. Like, if he's getting paid like a pro athlete now, dude. And then the the salaries come out, and I think Burgos was getting like either 50 and 50 or 100 flat. I was like, wait, this is like UFC pays that, if not more. Like, what are you talking about, man? So yeah, these guys like Paul Hughes, and did Dominic Wooden do that same shit too? Because it's like, dude, like, you guys should be fighting in the UFC. I want to see you guys against the best of the best. But anyways, Nathan Fletcher comes from that crop of talent. Now, I didn't see, like I said, I didn't watch a single episode on The Ultimate Fighter. But I heard that Nathan Fletcher kind of let a lot of people down in one of his fights, and it was a little bit uncharacteristic of him. So let's see how he does in the UFC. And then his opponent, Ramaska, what I've heard from this kid, he's a Lithuanian fighter. What I've heard about him is that he is super exciting, and he arguably had one of the best fights in Ultimate Fighter history. Now, again, I haven't seen the fight, haven't had a chance to, so I can't confirm nor deny if that's really the case, because people will say certain things, but then I got to go verify if those things are really facts or not. And throughout the week, if I get a chance, check my Twitter at Best Fight Picks. I'll leave you all a comment about what I thought about that fight if I get a chance to watch it. But what I can tell is that Nathan Fletcher is the more well-rounded guy here, and I think he's going to win for that reason. But again, guys, like I told y'all, and I know I'm repeating myself at this point, but it's not even about me watching The Ultimate Fighter or not watching The Ultimate Fighter. You guys have to, maybe I can give you some kind of information you didn't hear. Maybe I can entertain you, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, I'm not making your bets for you, and you're not making your bets, my bets for me. So always think for yourself when it comes to these kind of things, please. Now, last but not least, in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Cong Wang. She's 5-0, taking on Victoria Leonardo, who's 9-5. Currently, they got it Cong Wang minus 1,200. The comeback on Victoria Leonardo is plus 800. I'm sure you guys have already been told that Cong Wang beat Valentina Shevchenko in a pure kickboxing match. And, she's been doing her thing in MMA, and now she's getting her UFC debut against Victoria Leonardo, who, no disrespect to Leonardo at all, but Leonardo is one of, there's no nice way to say it. Is probably, I say lower ranked, not ranked. I mean, like, when you look at the roster, she's got to be towards the bottom of the roster. Like, Victoria Leonardo, we're talking about a girl who has been head kick KO'd on multiple occasions, and he gets finished anytime she fights anyone who's remotely UFC caliber. Now, granted, there's no shame in getting finished by Manon Fiorot, by Natalia Silva, two incredible fighters. But it's like, when these things happen over and over and over, and Erin Blanchfield head kicked her too. And there's no shame losing to Erin, but like, you think Erin would like beat her on the mat. Erin's out here head kick knocking you out. I just think that Cong Wang is going to come out here and do what people do to Victoria Leonardo in the UFC, which is destroy her, break her, head kick her, make her quit. Whatever the case may be, whether it's kicking her arms and breaking her arms, whether it's head kicking her in the chin, which she's been 3 times, knocking her out there, whether it's picking her apart for 3 straight rounds, armbar from guard, like, who knows? It's women's MMA. But I think Cong Wang is going to come out here and destroy Victoria Leonardo. Yeah. All right, now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. What is the fight to watch for UFC Vegas 96? I think the fight to watch is Edmen Shahbazyan versus Gerald Meerschaert. I mean, let me know the last time that either of these two were in boring fights, but then you have the dynamic of Edmen Shahbazyan kind of being a first-rounder bust guy, taking on the man with the most submissions in UFC history, and Gerald Meerschaert in middleweight history, excuse me, and a guy who's known for amazing comebacks and upsets. So for that reason, Shahbazyan versus Meerschaert is my fight to watch. Now, who is my fighter to watch? I know that he's a massive favorite, but it's Michael Morales. I want to see if Michael Morales is going to look minus 800 here. I want to see if Michael Morales is going to come out here and just kind of skirt past Neil Magny, or if he's going to destroy Neil Magny. Is he going to make the kind of statement where it's like, yeah, you're ready for top 15 competition right now? Or is it going to be kind of back and forth clinch battle where you're like, yeah, maybe Michael Morales needs a little bit more work. So for that reason, Michael Morales is my fighter to watch, because when you get the Neil Magny test, it lets us know exactly where you stand in the welterweight division. And I want to know exactly where Michael Morales stands in the welterweight division. So for that reason, he's my fighter to watch. With my friends, we did it. It's going down this Saturday night live at the Apex. Real quick, I want to thank Meticulous for making me such amazing thumbnails. And we got a lot of things in the work, all the artwork that's been coming up on my YouTube, my Twitter. Man, you are the motherfucking man. So thank you very much, Meticulous, for that. I want to thank the fans as well. You guys have been amazing, supporting Half the Battle, the Contender Series breakdowns, which I've been doing. We're 9-1 on the picks so far. And this coming week, we got a good friend of mine who I think is an incredible prospect named Malcolm Wellmaker fighting on Contender Series week 3. This is a guy who I saw him knock people out with headgear on as a bantamweight and as an amateur. And I called his fights in the NFC and he stood out right away. I was like, wow, this is a guy to look out for. A few years later, making that Contender Series debut, trying to fight for a contract. Those are the things you love to see, man. So, yeah, pay attention to an early release for Dana White's Contender Series week 3 on Half the Battle this Sunday. I'm going to drop it for y'all. But I hope you guys have a great time this Saturday with the fights. Hope y'all cash. And I look forward to speak with y'all soon. Smash the like button, hit the subscribe, leave me a comment, share if you feel so inclined. I truly appreciate it. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.